One of the biggest things that we're doing throughout summer, including the egg harvest as well as the vegetable harvest, is putting up the food to last us through the winter months when we aren't able to harvest it fresh. And because we choose not to use artificial lighting to force the hens to lay throughout the winter months, that means that I need to take my excess eggs and find ways to preserve them that are safe and that we actually enjoy and want to eat the food in the way that it's been preserved. So my hens are a little bit older now. They're actually 4 and 5 years old. So they're laying very not so hot. So any morning that I have eggs, I'm actually very excited at this time. And I know that I'm gonna have to be replacing some of the hens very shortly, but we've got eggs, yay! It makes them even more precious and more important that I get what we do have extra preserved, because I absolutely do not want to buy eggs from the store ever if I can avoid it. So in the past, I have preserved my eggs just by putting them into the deep freezer when I wanted to have their shelf life extended beyond just a few months. So in the fridge with farm fresh eggs, they will be fine in the fridge. I think I've had eggs in there probably up to 3 months and they've been just fine. I've actually never had any eggs go bad. But when the hens stop laying in the winter time, I want to make sure that I've got plenty of eggs, especially around the holidays for baking. So in the past, you can check out that video where I will whip up the eggs in a silicone muffin tin and freeze them and then just bring them out and thaw as needed. However, for fresh eating or like making scrambled eggs or omelets, the texture, I actually haven't even tested it that way. They've been fine for baking wise, but when I thaw them out, which I'll show you in a minute, they're not always the best looking for just doing scrambled eggs or an omelet or something of that nature. And I want to make sure that I have some type of eggs preserved and a good portion of our food preserved that's not relying on the freezer, so that when the power goes out running the generator or something happened to the generator and the power was out for a long period of time where I would lose that food. So I'm always looking for ways that are going to be shelf stable and to increase that. So I'm really excited about the freeze dryer because that's giving me the opportunity with the eggs to have a shelf stable product. One of the things that I like to do with the freeze dryer in order to be frugal with our energy use is to pre-freeze the trays, especially with things that are more liquid in nature like eggs and that have a longer time. It can knock off 8 to 10 hours of the freeze drying time. So I do 12 eggs per tray. I have the medium-sized freeze dryer, which I should say this video is sponsored by Harvest Right. They sent me the freeze dryer in exchange for my honest opinion and testing it out. So I have the medium one, so I have 4 trays, 12 eggs per tray, worked perfect for me. And with my chickens, I would say some of them are a little bit more on the medium size, whereas some of them are large. So a bit of a mixture there between medium and large eggs. Put these in the deep freezer, 12 eggs in the blender, blend them up just so that everything is consistent, pour that in, and let those freeze overnight. I did 8 hours in our deep freezer, and then I will go ahead and put them into the freeze dryer. So hopefully you can hear me okay over the noise of the machine, but you can also see why most people will have these in a garage, a separate building like we do, or not in the main living area of the house. So these eggs took about 24 hours, a little bit less, but I did not wake up in the middle of the night. When I went to bed last night, they were nowhere close to being done. So I think they got done probably more about the 22-hour mark. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit defrost. And then we're going to open this up. Silence is gold in there. Then we're gonna just pull this out. It's still a little bit suctioned. There we go. And we're definitely gonna use a towel because these are quite cold to the touch. So here's our first tray, and this is our raw eggs. So we're gonna see what that's like. So you can actually see, this is dry, like it's gonna just crumble into a powder very easily. So now we're gonna take this into the house and finish processing this up. So you can see this doesn't stick to the trays at all. I just put these right on the bare trays and it just comes right up, pretty thin, and it just crumbles to the touch. Now I actually want this to be in a pretty uniform, like a dry powder format, so I can easily measure this out. So I'm actually going to run this through the food processor just for a quick whirl in order to fully crumble all of this really quickly. There we go. Oh gosh, look at that. That is a really nice, fine powder. So for short-term use, you can totally just put these into a jar and just cap them up real tight, but I'm actually doing some of these for longer-term storage. So I'm still going to be using my mason jar and vacuum sealing it, but I'm also going to be including a package, down a little bit lower there, with an oxygen absorber. Because the amazing thing about the freeze-dried food is this can actually last for years, for like year type storage. If you're looking to go beyond a year or 6 months even, the Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers are going to be best. But this is what I'm putting up for our winter use when the hens are not laying at all. So it's going to be just fine in this. And the great thing is because this is powder, once you get it in there, we can tap this and it's going to help it settle, and I'll be able to get more into this jar. So we're going to get this sealed up in just a minute, but I want to do a taste test. So the equivalent of 1 egg is going to be 2 tablespoons of freeze-dried egg. We've got 1. Yeah, get that one leveled. There we go. Alrighty. So now we are going to add 2 tablespoons of water. So you can see this is already just starting to come back together and looking very much like a regular egg. So I have 2 different eggs here. This is the freeze-dried eggs that we just reconstituted with water. And then this is an egg that I froze just in our regular freezer, actually last fall. So I just pulled this out this morning and it's been thawing. So I'm just gonna kind of incorporate that a little bit. And you can watch the video I have where I showed how I was doing different preserving and how I will freeze the eggs initially. But you can see like this consistency, it's not as nice and smooth as the freeze-dried. So we've got a little bit of lumps here, which works fine for baking, which is predominantly how I use the frozen and then thawed eggs. But I really want to be able to have eggs that we can make into scrambled eggs, and to use in something where I'm not like beating it into a batter, into a cookie or something like that. So we are going to cook these as scrambled eggs and see once they're cooked what the verdict is. good. Yeah, this one definitely is not cooking up as well. Okay, so freeze-dried eggs, I have to say visually wise, looks like it's gonna be the winner. Here is our frozen and then thawed eggs, and I can see that the yolk and spots did not fully reincorporate back with the whites. But let's see what flavor, if we tell a difference there. Okay. It was really good. It tastes like a completely fresh egg that you just like grabbed from the coop and opened and cooked. I should say cracked. That one's really good. I can't tell any difference. I would have never known that that was a freeze-dried egg. All right, I'm gonna go in for here. Flavor-wise is fine. Texture-wise is not. It's not completely rubbery, but it's a little rubbery. So for the eggs that are done in just the freezer, they're fine in baking. Like I put them in cookies and cakes and things like that, where it's incorporated with other ingredients, and it's good. I'm not a fan of it though, as just a scrambled egg. But let's see if we can get my daughter to come out and do a taste test and not tell her which is which and see what she thinks. Oh. My son is not home right now and he loves eggs. This one does it so much, but mom is forcing her to do a taste test. Okay.
That one looks weird.
So just do a taste test and then just tell me which one you like the best. That one's the better one?
Mm.
This one?
Mm.
Oh, that one?
What are they?
So this was the freeze-dried.
That one's softer.
This one's softer. And this was the ones that were just frozen in the deep freezer and then thawed out.
Mm. I think that guy likes the blue plate.
The freeze-dried?
Yeah.
Okay, final conclusion. She waffled there. Final conclusion is the freeze-dried eggs were the best. For more videos on preserving your food at home, you can check out my home food preservation playlist. There is a plethora of videos there. And if you have a freeze dryer and are freeze drying food, let me know some of your favorites so that I can try it. Or if you would like me to test out and see how different foods are when they're freeze dried, let me know in the comments below.